Today on The Report, Elon Musk multi-billion-dollar social media buyout.
Plus, how Vice President Kamila Harris is doing after her COVID diagnosis.
And the latest on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. All this and much more. The Report starts now. Hello, I'm Jessica Gonzalez.
I'm Marissa Flores.
And I'm Amanda Mendoza. Follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or on our Time TV Instagram at Time TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content. Tesla, SpaceX, and now Twitter. Another business venture for Elon Musk, as a Tesla tycoon is set to buy Twitter in a $44 billion deal. Yes, that's billion with a B. Twitter announced the agreement on Monday, saying the decision was unanimous after Musk revealed a $46.5 billion budget dedicated to financing the company. As a part of the deal, shareholders will receive $54.20 in cash for each share they own before the company goes private. Musk has said that with his control, Twitter will allow for a less restrictive platform for users to express themselves and a step away from banning accounts and censorship. The deal will be confirmed once shareholders and regulators have approved it. So, to put some perspective on things, Elon Musk has been under heavy criticism on Twitter. He has 86 million followers, but according to CNN, with this platform, he continued spreading misleading claims regarding COVID, criticized politicians, and made what's considered transphobic comments. So critics are also concerned that Elon's goal of trying to prevent censorship will fester a community full of misinformation and harassment of others. So I really want to ask you guys, what do you think Elon's purpose is of buying Twitter? Because in my personal opinion, I think it's just a power trip. Look, he is one of the richest men on earth. He is a billionaire, not a millionaire, a billionaire. So personally, I just think it's a way to flex power. And in reality, he could have used this $44 billion for something more charity, such as donating food, ensuring several nations or several people have clean water and great resources. So I want to know your thoughts.
I mean, I agree with you. Like you said, less censorship is probably one of his goals. I know back in March on Twitter, Elon posted a poll for his users to respond to. He said, quote, "Freedom of speech is essential to a functioning democracy. Do you believe Twitter rigorously adheres to this principle?" 70% of his users said no, they don't think Twitter is allowing their freedom of speech. So I think that's his main goal, is to allow everyone to kind of just say what they wanted to say on Twitter. And if you are a Twitter user, you probably know that's probably not the best thing. I think it's going to lead to a lot of misinformation happening on that app. So I understand people's fear of him owning this huge platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the side of him being a businessman, on the side of him being a billionaire, this is a really smart move on his part. I mean, like you said, he's famous for ridiculing politicians, even journalists, and by being a businessman, by making this deal, he has a political forefront now. He has a kind of leverage when it comes to, political endeavors. So I think my concern now, though, is Twitter has already put in a lot of guidelines as far as misinformation goes and hate speech goes. So I know Elon wants more free speech, like we all do. Everyone deserves the right to free speech, but how much free speech? You don't want to have, especially with the 2024 election coming up, you don't want to have people throwing out misinformation comments, because we've seen, like, with the riot in the Capitol, what that has led to on Twitter, and people are wondering if he's going to give Trump his account back. There's a whole list of possibilities that can happen by him making this deal, and if he, rolls back on those guidelines that have already been set in place. All of that put aside, though, it always strikes a nerve with me, like you said, to see billionaires with all this money spend it on such trivial matters when we have increasing rates of starvation globally. We have climate change, extreme weather conditions because of climate change, and plenty of people are homeless right now in our very state, in our very cities, that they could be aiding right now. They could be helping so many people, but instead him and Jeff Bezos have space tourism companies when we have so many more issues here on the ground, here on Earth, that can be solved other than buying Twitter, which is already fine on its own in my opinion, but we'll see where that deal leads. Diving into the world of politics now, Vice President Kamila Harris tested positive for COVID-19 after her visit to California. On Tuesday, she tweeted, quote, "Today I tested positive for COVID-19. I have no symptoms, and I will continue to isolate and follow CDC guidelines. I am grateful to be both vaccinated and boosted." In California, Harris spoke at William J. Rudder Center at the University of San Francisco Mission Bay on Thursday and had her weekend free. Coming back to Washington to join the president at a meeting, she took a PCR test and went into isolation. It was confirmed by the vice president's press secretary, Kristen Allen, that Harris had not been in contact with President Biden or the First Lady Jill Biden since the White House Easter egg roll. Vice President Harris will be back in the White House as soon as she tests negative, and as of now is taking Paxlovid, an antiviral drug which lowers the chances of going to the hospital and undergo mild symptoms to COVID. We wish her a fast and steady recovery.
And now in global news, after a horrific story has caught the attention of women throughout Mexico as they urge authorities to further investigate the case of Debahani Escobar, an 18-year-old who was found dead after she'd been missing for 2 weeks. After a night out, Escobar decided to catch a taxi home, but for unknown reasons got out of the vehicle. Footage from a nearby camera shows the driver inappropriately touching Escobar, which officials believe is the main reason she got out of the cab. What seemed to catch the public's attention was the haunting image showing Debahani all alone in the dark, arms crossed, with a flowy pants, white top, and her bag on the highway of Monterrey. The taxi driver is now identified as 47-year-old Juan David Cuyar. After weeks of endless searches by the border state of Nuevo León, a, quote, decomposing body was found in a 12-foot deep water tank on the roadside motel, which was found by employees due to the odor. While the body was unrecognizable, family members were able to identify it as Escobar's cross necklace and clothing. While authorities state that Escobar's cause of death was due to a head injury, her father, Mario Escobar, added that the 18-year-old was also strangled and beaten. Feminists believe this is a case of femicides, or ongoing disappearances of young women in Mexico. This is a legal term used when women are killed simply because of their gender. This is an awful story to talk about, and I'm just curious what you guys think about this story. Now it's coming out that the taxi driver has been previously investigated for harassment and attempts of kidnapping women prior to this event. And I'm curious what's your response to the lack of action that the Mexican government has on this case and so many other cases that are happening in this country?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I definitely think we see a trend going on here. In the first 6 months of 2021 alone, I know at least 70 people have disappeared on this road, and it's been dubbed the nickname Highway of Death or Death Road because of the amount of disappearances that have occurred. Escobar herself is actually the 20th woman to go missing in the last 4 weeks alone in the city of Nuevo León. With this story, though, local media also reported while they were searching for her, they uncovered or discovered 5 other bodies of women and girls. But then we hear from the state's search commissioner that the bodies were actually all found alive, that all of the girls. So it's just a really confusing thing. And I think it's certainly a trend that even the president knows about. But like you said, we haven't seen much action be taken from him. We've just seen an increase in these missing people cases go on for years now. So I'm curious as to why this trend has been going for years and why it always seems like the police force in Mexico is always very seldom to act quickly. And as soon as they do act, it results in how we've seen today in such unfortunate news.
And actually, critics of the government are saying, like you mentioned, that the police aren't taking these issues seriously enough. They're not conducting these investigations in a timely and effective manner or in efficient manners. In fact, this is actually a problem throughout the entire country. So, for example, the killing of women in Mexico rose from 977 cases in 2020 to 1,015 in 2021. And in terms of disappearances, there are 1,600 reported missing each year, this year, while 829 are still missing and 16 are reported dead. So I think that these police officers really need to take initiative and be serious because femicides are nothing to joke about. And just to see this is an issue not only in Mexico, but here and all over the world, says that there's a bigger issue in our society and we need to ensure that we can fix that as soon and as efficiently as possible. Let's hope that Miss Escobar's killer or killers are caught and that the authorities can help bring some closure to her family. Now, a family in California had a terrifying experience of their own after a 3-month-old baby was kidnapped of his grandmother's home in San Jose on Monday. Fortunately, the baby was found alive the following day. Police revealed surveillance footage that showed a man walk out of the grandmother's apartment and onto the sidewalk after she briefly stepped out to bring up groceries. An endangered missing advisory was later activated when the mother was unable to identify the man in the video. Police were then able to find and reunite Brandon to his mother Tuesday before being taken to the hospital for precautionary evaluation. 3 suspects were taken into custody, but it is not confirmed if the man in the video is one of the suspects taken into custody. So this is awful. All I want to say is always be aware of your surroundings, especially when you have a child, and try not to leave them unattended at any time, because there's so many people who want to ensure that these kids are harmed or kidnapped. And it's absolutely terrifying that we have to live in this day and age where people still want to inflict harm on literal children, on a 3-month-old.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I think that for the neighbors, they've certainly been on like a roller coaster of emotions. First, finding out that they're going to have to be extra vigilant when it comes to their own families, their own children and grandchildren with this news. But then I'm sure there's also that sort of relief hearing that it didn't end bad, hearing that the baby has returned home safely. Yeah, you definitely want to think about the neighbors and what that means for the community and how they're going to, react to this and be affected by this. But as of Tuesday morning, we actually found out from ABC News the man caught in surveillance is indeed in police custody. And in fact, based on the initial investigation, police found that there is a link between the suspects in custody and the families. So while I'm sure neighbors are extra on their toes, extra being vigilant now, there is a little bit of a link there. There could be a little bit of a motivation there that we don't know about. But like we said, it's still not over. There's a lot to go over with this case, lots of speculation, and we'll certainly see how it moves on.
Right. I mean, cases like this, we hear about them all the time, sadly. And in a way, this is kind of like a miracle, because it's rare when they find a baby alive, well, safe, happy, and this fast too. So I'm just really happy that this ended up being one of those stories where it ended out in a positive outcome.
Exactly.
And in other local news, out of Koreatown, a seemingly routine bike ride to work turned into a hit and run. Moments before 3:30 in the morning this Tuesday, 2 bicyclists were struck by a Jeep Cherokee, which ultimately killed one victim and injured the other. By 6:30 a.m., the road was closed off for investigation. The bicyclists were found to be brothers and reportedly on their way to work when the vehicle hit them. In the mix of the hit and run, it was also found that the same vehicle was involved in a suspected unrelated grand theft auto incident. Police are working on gathering more surveillance footage and witness information, where a $50,000 reward will be issued if in fact a witness leads to the identity and arrest leading to conviction of the suspects.
Our thoughts are with the families of those affected, and this is a stark reminder, Titans, to always be aware of your surroundings, especially riding your bikes. Well, it's the trial heard around the world, pun intended. Actor Johnny Depp is suing his ex-wife, actress Amber Heard, for defamation after she wrote an opinion piece for the Washington Post in 2018. Heard wrote about being a victim of domestic abuse, but did not mention Depp's name. Johnny Depp is seeking $50 million, while Amber Heard has filed a countersuit and is seeking $100 million. Depp's lawyers claim that the article had, quote, a significant effect on Mr. Depp's family and his ability to work in a profession he loved. Although this is a defamation trial, this case has turned into much more than that. Depp denies ever being violent towards Amber Heard and claims that he is a victim of domestic abuse in the relationship. During the trial, an audio clip of Heard admitting to punching and hitting Johnny was released, along with allegations of Heard being responsible for cutting off part of Johnny Depp's middle finger. More clips were presented by Heard's lawyers showing Depp yelling at Heard and calling her degrading names. The trial is set to stand until the end of May. I'm sure you guys have seen this trial all over social media. It's like the #1 topic that's everywhere. TikTok is making edits of it. Twitter is like blowing up with all of their opinions on the trial. And I'm kind of curious what you guys think of that. And I'm not saying we're taking one side over the other, but it seems like the internet was so quick to take Johnny's side right away, no questions asked. So I'm just kind of curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, well, we actually found out that Heard suffers from 2 personality disorders. One is borderline personality disorder. The other is histrionic personality disorder. So there's a mental health aspect here that I think social media users need to be careful with, because as we know, people can be really cruel from behind the screen. They can have that, motivation that's not always there face to face when they're able to leave a comment on a situation they absolutely know nothing about. That being said, there's absolutely no reason to condone domestic violence. Like we know, as she admitted to assaulting Depp. There's no reason to condone that. But like I said, I just think people also need to be aware of the kind of claims they're making, the statements they're making, because going back to, like we discussed earlier, Twitter, hate speech, like, you know, these are situations that we've learned we need to be more sensitive about. And actually, I think so many people took Depp's side, seeing just as Heard was the first one to make it public, but now we see more and more information coming out about her relationship and her motives and the things she did in it. So I think that's part of the reason why people feel like they need to interject and make their opinions known in it. But if there's one good thing to come out of this trial being televised, I would say that hopefully people will take men more seriously when it comes to them making these kind of accusations.
I've heard different sides on TikTok, on Twitter, on all sorts of social media platforms, and some say that it would be a win for men who've been domestically abused by women but weren't taken seriously and weren't seen as a victim, assuming that Johnny Depp won, while others say that if Amber is actually able to show evidence that she was abused first, then it's sexism because everyone just automatically flocked to Johnny Depp's side. However, regardless, I do think there is something to say about that audio clip. I listened to it, and Amber said, quote, "I was hitting you, it was not punching you, you're fine," end quote. And so that kind of shows and demonstrates how she was downplaying the extent of her physical violence. So that's from what I know and what I heard on her side of the argument. So I think we just really have to wait and see how this whole situation plays out before we can make a conclusion about what happened.
Well, Titans, it's great to be back here in studio with you once again, delivering all the hot topics. So please stay tuned for more news, views, and updates. I'm Jessica Gonzalez.
I'm Amanda Mendoza.
And I'm Marissa Flores. As always, Titans, keep your tusks up and your heads held high. Until next time.